Traditional history is often presented as the story of ideas, the Enlightenment, the March of Freedom, or the evolution of human consciousness. In this Hegelian framework, history is the result of a developing spirit. Karl Marx looked past these philosophies to find a physical prime mover. Humans are biological creatures first. Before we can philosophize or form governments, we require food, shelter, and clothing. The tools, land, and human labor required to produce these necessities are the productive forces, the foundation of our survival. This biological requirement compels us to interact with nature through industry. Marx's materialist method starts here, with the observation that the way we organize our labor to meet material needs dictates the shape of our entire reality. This is the architectural logic of society. The base, the physical means of production, and the economic relations used to operate them, determines the shape of everything built on top of it. This upper layer is the superstructure. It contains our legal codes, state politics, and religious institutions. These structures merely reflect and protect the underlying economic engine, adapting their form as the base expands or shifts. Individual beliefs and legal codes serve as reflections of this specific economic foundation. Our sense of absolute free will or a free-floating consciousness is largely an illusion generated by this architectural arrangement. Human societies function as mechanisms designed to organize and maximize physical productive power. They are built on the friction of survival, not the cohesion of shared moral ideals. Marx approached history as a systemic analyst, prioritizing objective data over utopian moralizing. He sought the specific mechanical laws governing societal evolution. He identified the development thesis, a persistent historical tendency for human productive forces to grow and become more powerful over time. As technology improves, our capacity to manipulate the world increases. These forces consist of land, raw technological machinery, and raw human labor power. The primacy thesis holds that a society's specific economic structure exists for one reason: to serve the development of these productive forces. G.A. Cohen described this as a functional explanation. Capitalism persists because it provides the most efficient mechanism for developing industry and technology. It was selected for its output, not its ethics. This functional view operates through systemic evolution. It requires no conscious director or moral arbiter of history. The system simply moves toward the most efficient arrangement for growth. But the macro-level efficiency of the system stands in contrast to the physical constraints imposed on the human components. Economic epochs like capitalism are justified by their technological output, operating independently of the human costs required to maintain that efficiency. Looking at the micromechanics of the capitalist epoch reveals a calculation problem regarding the origin of profit. Marx utilized the labor theory of value, which states that a commodity's value is determined by the socially necessary labor time required to produce it. This refers to the average labor time needed under standard intensity. If all commodities in a market exchange at their true value, equivalence for equivalence, a system-wide profit is mathematically impossible unless a specific commodity generates more value than it costs. This unique property is found in the commodification of labor power, the physical ability to perform work. The accounting of production splits into two categories. Constant capital includes fixed costs of machines and materials. Variable capital consists of human labor power. Constant capital simply transfers its existing value into the final product, adding no new value. But human labor power possesses a unique biological property. It generates more value in a single day than it costs to keep the worker alive. The workday is divided into two segments. The first is necessary labor, the fraction of the day required to produce enough value to cover the worker's own survival costs. The remainder is surplus labor. This is the uncompensated portion of the workday, where the value produced is directly extracted as surplus value for the capitalist. This extraction of surplus value constitutes the hidden engine of all capitalist profit. It remains a structural requirement of the system, separate from individual greedy motivations. Capitalist wealth represents the gathered sum of uncompensated human time. Marx termed this residue dead labor, the physical remains of extracted life force. Maintaining continuous extraction requires more than economic force. It requires a sociological environment that prevents the machine from grinding to a halt. Marx redefined alienation as an objective structural separation. It exists as a functional fact of the economy, independent of the worker's subjective emotional state. This alienation has 4 dimensions. First, the worker is severed from the product of their labor. They create an object that they neither own nor control, and which eventually enters the market to dominate them. Second is the separation from the act of production itself. Creative effort is reduced to a debilitating physical requirement, performed solely to secure the means of survival. Third is the separation from other individuals. The system socializes us to view others as competitive instruments or obstacles to our own material ends. Finally, the system severs the human species' essence, the baseline biological capacity for free, conscious, and creative work. Why does the majority tolerate a structural dysfunction that benefits only a minority? The superstructure provides the answer through ideology, the non-repressive mechanism used to stabilize class division. Capitalist ideology masks extraction as natural law. The wage form creates an illusion of fair exchange, making exploitation appear like a voluntary agreement between equals. Capitalism maintains stability through an ideological frame that prevents the workforce from recognizing their own objective estrangement. Reconnecting this micro-extraction to the macro-progression of history reveals a flaw in the system's internal physics. Recall the development thesis. Economic structures are discarded the moment they stop advancing productive power. Capitalism's drive for profit pushes it toward total mechanization. As industry evolves, the system uses more constant capital and less human, variable capital. This creates a mathematical contradiction. Since only variable capital produces surplus value, automating creates a tendency for the profit rate to fall. Marx defined this as fettering, where the economic structure ceases developing productive forces and actively impedes them. This failure is a deterministic property of the system's own calculus. It requires no moral judgment to diagnose. The math simply hits a threshold of unrecoverable failure. This structural failure forces a transition. The fettered epoch shatters, leading to a new social organization. Capitalism operates as a finite, self-destructing machine, mathematically destined to lock its own gears.